Happy Tuesday, one and all. One and all, happy Tuesday. Yes, you are now listening to the sounds of Sports Reports Disordered. Tonight, we got a lot of basketball to talk about, trade reaction. We got some football. You know there's a big game coming up on Sunday. And then,
Pro Bowl.
have you ever thought to yourself, what would baseball look like without a salary cap? Well, we're going to tell you. Because I got with me, the one and only, world renowned, born in Texas, raised in VA, representing everything New Jerusalem. Before you even try to bat an eye, he wants you to know that the state of New Jersey, Rutgers University, is going to give you 2 top 5 NBA picks in the draft this year. Stand up, Scarlet Knights. And then, of course, you got me, 2-5. Your unorthodox statistician going left so much you thought I was southpaw, and I want you to know I believe in Joe Hendry. Let's get this thing started. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate, do all the free things. Do all the good things. So, Mr. Logical. I was drunk as hell Saturday night. I was sitting up in here arguing with people, we were having game night. We weren't even arguing about games. And then I went on to X and I was like, hold up. I know I'm drunk, but I ain't that drunk. So I started refreshing. You scroll down you scroll it down and like let it repopulate or whatever. And I saw those 2 words. It's real. From the one and only Shams Charania. So I called people and I was like, did y'all see that Luka got traded for Anthony Davis? And everybody said, no, man, what you talking about? You sound drunk, by the way. And I'm like, no, I ain't this drunk. Bruh.
Yo. I was playing a board game, right? Ava texts me. So my lady's daughter, Rachel's daughter, we had like a little group chat. She texted me because, on the show Friday, we talked about how the NBA is not really giving us much to talk about. So she texted me and she was like, you guys have something to talk about on the podcast now? And I'm playing like this intense game. It's like a prison break game where you got barter and trade. Like my son's really in the board game, so I'm really trying to focus on that. And then I'm like, wait, hold on, stop this game. So I'm looking at my phone, and she sent me the screenshot, so I zoom in. I'm like, Luka got traded for AD. I'm like, this is fake. Because like normally when I'm like chilling with my family, the sports group chat is just going off. So like I kind of put it to the side and I catch up later. Then I hit you up like, yo, what I miss. So like I get to that and I think it's like 60 messages deep. I'm like, what's going on? So I checked it and I saw a couple more. I'm like, these look fake. And then I don't know if I locked in that it was true until I don't know if somebody posted like Sham's Twitter. But even then, I think when I saw it, because like I said, I was drinking a little bit too. When I saw it, I thought that was still fake. I'm like, none of this is making any sense. Mm-hmm. So then I hit you up and you're like, yeah, I'm just seeing it too. I don't know what's going on. And so that was, we'll call it was Saturday night, like midnight here, probably like 9 out west when they were making this deal. Mm-hmm. I've been trying to figure it out since that moment. Like I had a conversation with my dad on Sunday and I was like kind of giving the optimistic approach. Like, all right, LeBron is already old. Now he can take like possessions off. But you still got to guard him. So now Luka can play 4-on-4 with the rest of the guys. And if LeBron needs to crash in and make whatever, like it can happen, but he can take possessions off. Like I know he's been trying to do that for the last couple of seasons. We've seen it a lot where I know defensively he ends up taking possessions off, but that ends up hurting the Lakers. But then he'll come back and he'll try extra hard offensively because he knows he's going to take his break defensively. Or he'll guard the guy who's not going to shoot. Now, I think on that other end, Luka can make this move. So my dad said something back to me. He was like, that ain't gonna work. They both need the ball for 100% of the time. How's it gonna work? I'm like, I want to argue with him, but I'm like, you might be right. So I'm like, well, AD. I'm like, well, that'll work for AD because now AD can play the 4, and Gafford and Lively can do all of the dirty work. But I'm like, all right, well, a lot of guys leave LeBron and their points and shots and opportunities kind of go up. So maybe that'll work out for AD. But I'm like, okay, what are you gonna do with the front court guys? Is Clay really gonna get more space? And I just was like, I was trying to bounce like logical reasons why this makes sense. And then I'll hear somebody else say something else. You're probably gonna say something to me that make me sway back another way in this conversation.
So knowing me how you know me.
It's like I said, you're gonna say something that I'm
no, not even that yet. Not even that yet.
It's gonna make sense.
But what do you think was the first thing I noticed or thought about the trade once I realized it was real? You ain't gonna guess it, but let's just see what you say.
That it wasn't LeBron?
No. So you said something to me the other day. You brought up the Paul Gasol trade.
Oh,
so the first thing I noticed was that it was 17 years to the day that the Paul Gasol trade happened. The exact same day, just 17 years ago. That was the first thing I noticed.
Well, I've always felt that trade was very similar to the Kevin McHale KG trade to Boston. It was like, all right, you're the franchise I really love.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hook up my first love. Yeah, we got divorced and I got this new John, but she give me a little attention. But you my real heart. I'm gonna give you KG for a bucket of beans and some rocks. And I felt that Paul Gasol going to LA was that. And then when I looked into more who this guy Nico Harrison was, I don't know how deep that relationship is, but I imagine any kind of Laker relationship that starts with Kobe and it's a real relationship, then it's probably pretty deep.
So there was two things that came to my mind. So the first thing was, okay, the Dallas Mavericks just made the NBA Finals last year.
Correct.
We talked about Minnesota. Why would you trade Cat after your run to the Western Conference Finals? It's like the first success like this that you've had since KG. So why not take another step further? So then, as I was thinking about this, I said to myself, I go back to the NBA Finals last year because Nico Harrison kept talking about Luka being in shape, Luka's injury, so on and so forth, whatever. Defense wins championships. And all I could think about was him hobbling around the NBA Finals. So are you using that little microcosm or whatever to make a big point? And I said, that can't be it. So then I said, you know what? In the NBA Finals last year, Stafford and Lively, both of them 7 feet tall. Neither one of them averaged 10 points. All they were good for was lobs. Correct. So now I can get a big man in there that can give us front court production outside of lobs. So that was step one. Then step two, I went on Google because there was something that stood out in my mind. And I had to make sure that I was right before I say this publicly. And then I was like, Jason Kidd was on that coaching staff when the Lakers won the championship in the bubble. Then I thought to myself, okay, but why does that stand? So he has a history with AD. Okay. But wait, is there something else I could pull from? AD doesn't want to play the 5. When they won that championship, he had Dwight Howard beside him.
Yeah, he did an interview like a week before he got traded.
Yeah, so now
he was saying we needed a 5.
Yeah, so now you bring him to Dallas. You got 2 5s to play him next to. No pun intended. So, so like from that standpoint, you can't even get mad at it because he gets to play the position that he wants while adding the punch that Dallas might have been missing from their front court. So now, okay. So now I got Kyrie. I got Clay. He's just Lay right now, not Clay anymore. He's just Lay. But I'm sure he still got like a 25-point outburst in him somewhere, for a game and a series.
I mean, he's now without Luca, he's your wing shooter.
Yep.
And I think he'll get the ball. I think he'll get the ball off the curl, pin down screens, because now Gafford, Lively, any big that's in the game. I know Lively is currently injured, but
Yeah, he's
when these
injured right
guys
now. Yeah.
get back healthy, those guys don't have to worry about catching lobs to be productive from the 4 or 5 position for Dallas. Like they don't
Right.
have to say, you know what, I got to be here just in case Luka floats me the lob. I can
And
go out of here and set the screen for Clay because AD's down on the block, and if Kyrie can't get it to AD on the block, he can get it to Clay off this pin down, little stuff like that. But once again, like I said, I'm just trying to
I know,
rationalize
but hold
this
on. Listen to this though.
because
Listen to this.
because I'm trying to think logically.
So as I'm going through the West, right? I'm looking at like who am I going to run into potentially in the playoffs down the road, all that kind of stuff, right? So let's say with the 5 seed. Okay. Let's say I end up with the 5 seed.
We definitely that changes.
Yeah, the wizardry there. Let's say I
Yeah.
end up as the 5 seed, and let's say I run into the Nuggets. Now I got 3 options for Jokic, including AD being one of the better options for Jokic. Now I look at OKC, and you remember ever since last season, the biggest thing that I've been saying about OKC is they have rebounding problems. Chet's been out half the year now. Hartenstein's been in and out the lineup. But now I got a guy who can outscore Chet, out defend Chet, and I might be able to get him to outscore Chet and Hartenstein combined. And then when I get Gafford and Lively on these lobs, now I'm forcing SGA to have to score 35 to beat me. And he might have to do that 4 or 5 times within this series, for OKC to really feel good about it.
But I'm looking at these standings right now. Even with Chet and Hartenstein being out, SGA is playing MVP level basketball.
Correct.
They still don't have double-digit losses yet.
Correct.
So that's what I mean with we got to switch this back. This is weird to me. I can't even focus. But it feels as if we as fans who have gotten the trade, it's happened because I think we talked about this Friday about guys. I don't know if I said it in passing, I'm like guys like Anthony Edwards and Luka and Jason Tatum, those guys are locks for your franchise. You got to build around them. I think I might have said something like that in passing, just working on the rational assumption that there's no way you trade Luka before the 2026 season, like that we were talking about. That was our topic Friday. So I think now we have the trade, we have the information, we know all the players, and we're just trying to make sense of it by saying this is how it can go well. But in order for OKC to really be impacted, they would need to take a step back. I don't know if that's the case.
Well, they still don't necessarily have a lot of experience.
The playoffs start. Give me what, April 16th or something like that.
Something along those lines, yeah.
Yeah, so you got the All-Star break that gives guys about 9 to 10 calendar days, after that starts. So then you're at best case scenario with practice time, games, injuries, rehab, healing, days off. You got like 70 days between now and the beginning of the playoffs. We've already had a few months of basketball. So you got teams like Thunder 39-9. I think they're locked in continuity because you asked me, do the Thunder make a move? I'm like, no, because now they can rest on their continuity being the ace up their sleeve, the feather in their cap that they can lean on in tough times. Last shot, Dallas. Who they drawing the playoff for? Is it Clay? Is it Kyrie? Is it who the boy they just traded for today? Caleb Martin. So it's like I think both teams are set up pretty good in the trade. I just figured you probably should have made it in the offseason.
Well, just like you said a
Give
little
yourself
while
a real
ago,
shot. Like if that trade happened in September, October, you
well,
can
you've
make
been
it work.
beating the drum for years that the Lakers should move on from AD. Because we both knew that they weren't going to move off of LeBron, even though I've always argued that they should, and I still think they should at this moment. Because like these teams get into we talked about this last week with the Jimmy Butler stuff where these teams hold on so long, so like you have to. I don't want to disrespect LeBron, but you have to think post LeBron at some point.
Yeah. And
This
you asked me the other day, did I think GMs watched like sports boards and posts and
right,
see these
right.
things? And you've been saying that for years, like move on from your superstar. My AD trade, it wasn't because I thought AD wasn't a valuable player. I just felt like he was the most valuable player for the Lakers to get other pieces.
And
Like,
theoretically, his value wasn't going to get higher
yeah, it wasn't gonna get higher, but I
until
mean,
they did
obviously
some shit like this.
to get Luka, yeah. But like for instance, I know this might have been like I want to say disparaging, but say you take a team like Utah,
Okay.
you get a guy like Walker Kessler, Jordan Clarkson. I don't know if the money is right for John Collins, but you throw Collins in, and now you go AD when they had like Pat Bev or something like that, and a couple of picks. I
Okay.
think you can make that work, and I believe you can get enough out of those three guys with LeBron versus just LeBron and AD. Because with LeBron and AD, you were still searching for a third and a fourth guy to do a couple extra things to take stuff off their plate. So that's
Right.
why I was like, AD was probably the best piece to move, but they didn't want to move because everyone was going by this narrative like, oh, you got two top 15 guys, you got to keep them. And you're like, listen, you got to move one of them because you can't keep both of them because you weren't keeping AD. If LeBron, who's currently 40, if he decided in August, like, you know what, I'm not going through another 7 months, about 8, 9 months of basketball. I'm
Well,
going to call it a
different
career.
teams have different values. So, like, say you're the Warriors, for example. You won what was it, like 4 championships in like a 7-year period or something like that.
People act like the Warriors didn't win in the 2022 season too. Like that's the
Right,
crazy part. Like,
right.
they
But
just won.
no, but the point being is that if the Warriors decided to start over, I think people would be okay with that. Like the fans, there's always going to be the extremist, but most people would be like, "Hey, we won 4 championships, whatever. Let's
But
start
that would have
putting the pieces
required them to
together."
trade Clay, Draymond, Kaminga
Right,
after they won a championship. Like
right.
as soon as the championship parade was over, they cleaned the streets up. They cleaned up all the Ace of
Which
Spade,
I
the
argued
Cavall,
that they
the
should have
Bud Light,
done.
whatever.
Which I
That would have
argued that
worked
they should have
in.
done. But like
But
when you look
now
at
they
the
don't have that.
Lakers, but when you
Yeah.
look at the Lakers, the franchise that the Lakers are, you don't necessarily get that same grace. You know what I mean? And especially they haven't won the championships recently that Golden State has won. They won the one in 2020, but outside of that, you got to go back to Kobe again. So
But
so
with
so Lakers
championships,
expect
the
championships
championships are
every year.
difficult. Like I think
No,
people,
I know, I know.
I think we've gone just the media narrative. Now we're in the media with the championships. Something that Nick Wright said on the show yesterday on First Things First. He was like, the Lakers are the only organization for like the last 50 years, 60 years have had a guy on their team in his prime that deserved a statue at the end of his career. He was
Right.
like, they never had a gap. He was like, it was like Whoop, Kareem, Magic. Then you had a
Mac.
little bit of a gap. Shaq, Kobe, all the way up to a couple of years without Kobe. Then LeBron. Then you had Elgin Baylor, Jerry West. You just had like guys that the coach deserved a statue, like the
Right.
owner deserved a statue. So
Right.
it's like
Jerry
they
West.
have just had a luxury of riches that other organizations haven't had. And they won a handful of championships in between that. Like each one of those guys delivered a championship to the organization.
And I got it real quick. I got to laugh that Max Christie scored 15 points tonight.
Yo, I talk about it all the time. You look at the pregame interviews when the two commentators are sitting there and you watch behind them, you see how many shots are just all falling. These guys are superior at what they do. It's just the role you have to play.
Right.
I want if you sign on optimism, you think to yourself, I'm the Dallas Mavericks. I just got AD. If whatever he's got going on his oblique can be rested between now and the All-Star break, he chills. I don't know if he plays in the All-Star game, whatever, but like he rests up, he's healthy, he's good to go. That run from 19 February to 19 April can have us in contention, and then the playoffs start. If you're LA, you're hoping that maybe by Thursday, maybe somebody's willing to give you a 6'11" guy,
So right now, all the
expiring contract or so
tea
whatever
leaves,
narrative they need.
right? All the
They
tea
need.
leaves are saying that they're pursuing Vucevic, Nick Claxton, and Miles Turner. So those are the three targets right now. Like I would think out of the three, you might want Claxton. It just depends on what your goals are. Like if you're trying to win a championship this year, you probably go for Miles Turner. But if you're looking at now and beyond, you might want to look at Nick Claxton because he's the same age as Luka. Whereas Miles Turner, he's not old. I think he's 28 or so. He's not old.
I don't know why they just don't just go to their G League and get one of their 7-foot guys.
Well, they just drafted the guy from Florida 2 years ago. Castleton, that's 7'2". I like him a lot. He's slow-footed.
Rebound.
Yeah, he's slow-footed, but he grabs boards. So are we going to wake up Thursday or Friday this week and find out that Luka was a mafia boss all this time?
Like usual suspects.
No, I'm just they know something that we don't know. Like
you're saying like he's connected to some super far right organization from Slovenia that's plotting some kind of coup. And he's funding it.
Yeah, because I figure he's been.
That's why honestly, it sounds crazy. I was thinking does he have like a post on his old burner Twitter account? And he did some wild shit.
He's only played 22 games this year, and there were rumors that earlier this year when they said he had a wrist injury, there were rumors that was getting shape time. They gave him days off so that way he could work out and do all these things. He's been hurt since Christmas. He hasn't played since Christmas. So is the calf strain? So is the calf strain a little worse than we know, or is it not a calf strain? I don't know, because if that is true that they did that, they could be pulling all the wool over our eyes. Because he genuinely looked shocked and subdued. When talking about the trade, I can't believe. And then there was Nico allegedly didn't talk to Jason Kidd about it. They only talked to the Lakers.
But my thing, along with that, they had to talk to Danny Ainge,
right,
to get the third team in, and
he gave both teams $50,000.
Danny Ainge is a savvy guy. Like it was to the point where it's like between him and Bill Belichick, if you see this Boston area code, this Massachusetts area code pop up, you don't answer the phone from like 2005 until forever. You just don't answer the phone. So for him to be involved and not come out, I was talking about that. Like I don't want to use the word collusion. Like I don't want to be accusational because this is they made a legal trade.
I will do it for you.
It just seems that either he was like, listen, I want a top 10 guy. I don't think any other team would, I won't say keep the integrity of the trade, but I don't think if you called, let me see who, OKC wouldn't do it. Give me a top 10 guy in the league, like Donovan Mitchell. We'll go Donovan. He's a star, Cleveland. I know it's like, but it's like if he called Cleveland, like, listen, I'm looking to move Luka, but I want like your best young guy. I want Donovan, and I want a couple more things. I think that GM is going to look at an opportunity like, you know what? This guy's ready to move Luka. Let me see how much blood I can squeeze out of this stone. So if you call Sacramento, they probably would have done the same thing.
You could have had a
If
mega
you
deal.
if you call Charlotte, no, but that's the thing. I'm thinking if you reach out, because no one's going to call you about Luka. It's not a
Right.
GM of the other 28 teams besides the Lakers and Dallas that would have called Dallas before this week and say, hey, man, what do you think about for Luka? Because their expectation is Luka, I'm going to get the Paul George deal that OKC got from the Clippers at a minimum.
So
I think they
what's the
still
list?
got picks.
So what's the list? There's what? Like before that trade happened, right? It was Luka, Jokic, SGA, Jason Tatum.
Maybe Jalen Brunson, Steph. I think LeBron was probably untouchable in my estimation. I say Paolo and Orlando is probably untouchable. Wemby.
That might be it.
Lesser degree, maybe Embiid. Because I don't think you would get a great enough offer for Embiid because of his injury. So I think like you would have to go over the top. So like essentially that makes him almost, by default untouchable. Right. But Luka was at the top of the list. There was no I didn't see a rumor. I didn't see an AI generated question. We talk about all kinds of hypothetical stuff in this sports group chat all day long, 24/7, 365. Not a single person ever mentioned trading Luka for anyone.
Anybody.
So it had to be one of those, like, I'm gonna call Rob. Rob is gonna shoot me the fair one. Like, listen, Rob, I really want AD.
I've known you for 20 years.
I've known you for a while. I really want AD. So what's the minimum we can do? And you get Luke and I get AD. Like, well, we got to make the money work. We got to make this work. So we got to get a third team involved. Who could we call that loves a good deal?
Right. I almost think this is borderline a fireable offense. Like, you know what I mean? Like, especially like, considering his reputation already.
Mark Cuban would have fired him. I was talking to my pops. Like, Mark Cuban, if he would have walked in Mark Cuban's office and said, hey, I got an idea. How about we trade Luke? And before you stop, no, don't even go back to your office. Sit down. So right here. Security, come to the office, please. Bring some extra bodies.
I got some trash for you to take out the building.
You got to help clean out somebody's office. He he can't. He won't help you. Not yet. He's not allowed back in his office. He's fired. He doesn't know it yet. Wait, hold on. You're fired. Yeah, he's fired.
We're gonna see. I like the Jason Kidd tie to AD. I like the, like I said, playing off of the finals last year. The only question that I have is, can Kyrie? Can he be more of a setup guy? Because I don't know.
I don't think you need to. I think AD is an independent player. I think he's like an independent contractor, mercenary. So I think you just get him the ball. You get anyone to get him the ball. I don't think you have to run sets for him because he can play. He plays like Pau Gasol, a little bit bigger, a little bit more athletic. Same type of, you don't have to run a lot of sets for him, like especially with the triangle, you just get him the ball. Get him the ball in his spot, let him work. Now, if you think about who's defending him, if he's playing the 4, are you rotating the 5 over? And I think even having a guy like Clay that can stretch the floor, I think Kyrie stretches the floor. I think Kyrie stresses the defense out. So it could work. I still don't understand how the conversation really started and how it came to fruition. We could talk about the pieces now that they're gone. I still don't understand. Was his weight really that big of a problem? Because we talked about it for years. And every year in the league, with all of this weight concern that we had, he got better every year on great numbers. It wasn't like he was averaging 18, 6, and 4, and then went 21, 9, and 5.
Luka
it was like he was averaging 27, 7 and 4. And then it was 28 and a half, 8 and 8. Then it was 29, 9 and 9. It was like he was going up exponentially. And then in the playoffs, his numbers
he averaged 34 or something like that.
Yeah, and in the playoffs, his numbers went to like 31, 10 and 9. Western Conference Finals.
Dallas got out of
guys
Luka.
out. Yeah,
they got out of Luka what New Orleans wanted to get out of Zion.
They got out of Luka what every team wants to get out of a guy that they draft top 10.
Right.
And more. 5-time All NBA. So those are the things that just make me think like, then if I look at this year,
did they have rumors that he was going to ask out or something, or like because I know like he was eligible for the Supermax, but now he's going to be 116 million short on that once LA gives it to him.
You know what? If they have a good enough lawyer in the stash as the NBA PA, I think they could probably figure out a way to get him close as they can to that max.
It's the NBA rule. We'll see.
I don't know how it's written, but if it's written like, oh, the team that drafts you,
that's how it's written.
If it's written flat out like that, I imagine there's some kind of caveat. Like some lawyer can put one paragraph together, mix it with this one, and say, hey, in this situation, I think these 2 paragraphs warrant to be applied to the situation. Because
you might see that down the road. You might see that down the road. Like Luka's going to lose his money, and then you might see that introduced later, and it'll be the Luka rule.
Because I think the logic behind the rule, and it's sometimes where you have too many rules, it can really kind of bog you up. I think the logic behind the rule was because ultimately, if I draft you and you are the talent level that's worth a Supermax, you're probably really, really, really good. And I probably drafted you at age 19 to 21.
So nervous walking over to that bench.
What's that?
Luka, like he looks so nervous walking over there. Their game just about to start. They were showing him walking over to the Lakers bench. He just looks so awkward, but
it's like the first time ever. But yeah, like I said, if you're one of these players that's due for a Supermax, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Zion, Ja Morant, you're probably thinking that you're not gonna leave that team. So I think the rule is written so if you're in Milwaukee, if you're in San Antonio, if you're in Minnesota, New York, LA, Miami can't come through with the same exact deal as the team that drafted you.
Mm-hmm.
It's to keep you in that market that drafted you. Because normally, as we think about it, like a lot of the smaller markets end up, and we'll get more to it in baseball, a lot of smaller markets end up being high draft picks. Cleveland's, your Chicago's not a small market. It's not a big popular market as far as like
which
people don't think about Chicago. They're the 3rd largest city in America, but it's not like movies that you see on TV are based on LA.
What's funny about that is Phoenix is the 4th biggest city, and like you wouldn't know it. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. Like people don't base their view of America on those cities. It's New York, LA. Everything's New York, LA, and then Miami.
People are weird. There's other great cities out there, but but
that was Chicago. But so like that's the thing with that rule is like if they trade me when I'm healthy and I'm performing at a Supermax level, that seems like an odd way for my previous team to get out of paying. You know what I mean?
Well,
so
like if they do have true concerns about his fitness or whatever, I can understand not giving somebody $345 million.
But they weren't. It wasn't a requirement for him to get it this year because it's an extension on his contract that ends next year. So even with that, it's like,
and they still did the Lakers a favor because the Lakers don't have to give him that.
So it's like the ultimate motivate. People say losing the finals should, like that's what I'm saying. I'm still baffled by this trade. Losing in the finals should have been his motivation, but maybe $116 million would have been good motivation.
Maybe it takes for the bright lights. I don't know. We'll see. But but there was another trade in the NBA. DeAaron Fox got exactly what he wanted. He said he wanted to go play with Wemby. He's going to play with Wemby. And Mr. Logical, this shit drives me nuts. This ain't even the Jimmy Butler thing where I'm upset that he got what he wanted, because DeAaron Fox was pretty quiet about it. He was like, hey, I would prefer to go to Wemby, but there were no, that's the only team he's going to re-sign with and all that kind of stuff. Correct. But the reason that it made me go crazy, because I was like, no Steph Castle, no Devin Vassell, no Jeremy Sohan. What? Like
I go back to our Friday show. I saw a video today. Granted, yeah, I don't believe in conspiracy theories. I do think they're interesting if they're formulated properly. I find a little interest in them. And it was like the commissioner or the financial powers that be of the NBA said, like, listen, man, it's the week of the Super Bowl. We're not getting a lot of buzz this year. It's been all NFL. It's been Joe Burrow for MVP has gotten more buzz than NBA talk. And Joe Burrow's team was under 500 when he was getting MVP, NFL MVP, more buzz for that than the NBA.
And it wasn't even a possibility.
It wasn't even a possibility. It was the most making the playoffs was highly unlikely, but let alone him winning MVP. But that had more run than Knicks conversations, than Wemby conversations, than LeBron conversations. Like, hell, Wemby has more blocks than like 96% of the NBA all time in 2 years. And it was like, you know what? You GMs need to do something.
Yeah.
But I think really they needed to do something. I think if you were an NBA independent consultant, I think a lot of these moves would have been made over the last 2 or 3 years, because you and I have had conversations about don't pay that guy, don't trade for that guy, don't hire that coach, don't fire that coach, trade this superstar. I think you've had more of those ideas, but your job was resting on it. And I think a lot of GMs are kind of operating like, if I make this move and it goes sideways, I'm going to lose my job. I'm like,
right.
If you're under contract and they fire you, they're still cutting you a check. So it's like, if you're getting $8 million a year to be a GM and you got 3 years left in your deal and they fire you, like, cool, so you're going to cut me a check for you're going to cut me $24 million.
Go out your way, because I'm sure there are some owners out there that would take risk. Like Mark Cuban will bring you in if he was still the owner. If you took risk that made sense, like
that didn't involve Luka, yeah,
right, and you know, because like looking at this deal, you know, the Spurs got Fox and Jordan McLaughlin. Sacramento gets Zach LaVine, CD Sissoko, 3 first-round picks, which includes a 2025, you know, that's this year, Hornets pick, which is probably going to be somewhere
top 3.
Yeah, top 3 to 10. Lottery at the least.
Top 1 to 3. They're 12 and Bulls, 32 right now.
And then the Bulls end up with Zach Collins, Trey Jones, Kevin Huerter, and then they got their own 2025 back from the DeRozan deal when they sent DeRozan to the Spurs. They got DeRozan from the Spurs.
From Spurs.
Yeah. So you know, so now like you go back and you look at this.
Considering now we look at the Luka deal, it was like what, 7 total players and 3 picks.
It was Luka, Markieff Morris, and Maxi Kleber.
Then AD,
and then the Jazz got Jalen Hood-Schifino, and I believe it was 2 second-round picks.
Couple of picks, yeah, of picks, and then Max Christie.
Oh yeah, Max Christie. Yeah.
So we had 6 total players, and we counted 3 picks in the Luka deal. And you just said the DeAaron Fox deal had 3 players go to the Kings.
Got 3 picks themselves.
Yeah.
And the Bulls got a first-round pick out of it, and they were the 3rd team.
You talked about this with Jimmy Butler, and KG talked about this as well, and on his podcast with Paul Pierce, which is just the greatest 2 old men talking about basketball podcasts ever, because they hardly ever agree. Paul Pierce is like this cool Southern California guy. Like, listen, man, listen, he not ready for the moment. We talking about Lord. We talking KD's loud. We talking about Lord. He ready for the moment, Lord. But what he was saying about Jimmy Butler, he was like, man, this is kind of behavior that's gonna set other players back to where now GMs aren't gonna want to guarantee contracts. That's DeAaron Fox did the same thing. James Harden did it 3 times. No, 2 or 3 times. People talk about other guys moving, like they talk about the KD move, they talk about LeBron's move. Both of those guys played out their contracts.
They were free agents. Yeah.
They were free agents. They played out their contracts. They picked the team that they wanted to go to, and they allowed each team to pitch them. But I play out my contract with you, then I'm a free agent. I go where I want to go. But if you give me $200 million, I think KD kind of forced his way out of Brooklyn, and Brooklyn was kind of like
but he was
over
still
a barrel.
nice about it though. Like he wasn't like do this or else or whatever. Like he was just like, yo, I want to go to Phoenix.
Yeah, and James
like,
Harden already slid. They already traded.
They were like,
they already had the issue with Kyrie.
To us, we'll help you get to Phoenix. Whereas Jimmy Butler is like, nah, I'm only going to Phoenix.
When he sent the text saying, I'll meet y'all there when they're waiting for him on the airplane, I'm telling you, me and Dre, we were leaving Germany like 03. And I caused us to miss our flight. Like we were together, and it was my fault. Like I was late taking my time. We missed our flight. So we had to take another flight from Frankfurt to Philly. We had to go from Frankfurt to Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh to Philly. He didn't talk to me till we were in the air.
Yeah.
Leaving Frankfurt on our way to Pittsburgh.
Right.
So, and he's my boy. So I can imagine how pissed these dudes were sitting in an airplane waiting on him. He was like,
and you're our leader at that.
Yeah.
Like this ain't just Tyler Hero fucking off. Like you're supposed to be Heat culture.
Yeah. And I'm not gonna act like I haven't slept right up until the alarm the last minute, but I gotta go catch a flight. I get it, but he's pouting about it, and Kevin Garnett was like, you're gonna hurt other players because the owners have all the leverage. So when they go back to the table,
Jimmy Butler rule.
it's gonna be the JB rule because you don't have Chris Paul as the president of the CBA of the Players Union and faces like D Wade, LeBron, maybe latter KG. Paul Pierce might have still been in the league maybe 7 8 years ago when last time they did this. Even some rising stars like you had like the Ben Simmons. You had stars all over the place that the owners were like, okay, we are outnumbered here. Like their star power outweighs our financial power.
Yeah.
And they were building that financial exposure bridge with China. You needed guys like Kobe. You needed Dwight Howard was a big guy in China. Obviously, LeBron. Steph was huge.
This player association list is so random.
Yeah. So like I said, it just real quick. The owners know. The owners know. Like, yo, you don't have LeBron as your negotiating tool for the next 4 years. You don't have Steph till 2029. You don't have KD anymore. Like, it's LaMelo Balls and Donovan Mitchells and other guys that we have star power leverage over because we have more money.
So right now the committee is CJ McCollum is the president. You got Andre Iguodala, Grant Williams, Harrison Barnes, Bismack Biyombo, Malcolm Brogdon, Jaylen Brown, and Jaren Jackson.
Okay. Good, smart players, but
not that stature.
But I'm talking about in the league in itself.
Oh, you just mean as far as the players?
Your representation can be just the smartest guys you have and the guys who want that position, the guys who treat it with respect and deference and everything else, and they're working hard to make that work. The leverage that they have is Steph is international, KD's international, LeBron is international, Dwight Howard's international, Kobe Bryant is international. You know, the brand of Jordan is international. Like, there's so many feathers in their cap that they can stick in and argue and lobby with the owners to get what they want. But now the owners are looking around like, yeah, Jokic is a superstar, and he's winning MVPs.
He don't
Giannis is
care.
winning MVPs. He don't care. He's not on it the way you guys are on it. We don't need to do the social justice movements anymore.
Well, you heard the latest
We don't
rumor,
need to
right?
guarantee your contracts anymore. You guys don't have the star power because, like, who of all the guys that are currently in the league, okay, maybe LeBron could be like, "Yo, we walking out," but how many guys in their early 20s or be like, "Yo, LeBron's my guy. I'm rocking with him. I'm following him." Like those guys haven't. They weren't shooting.
They
with him
waiting
in
to
the
see what
gym.
Anthony Edwards got to say.
Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, maybe
Ja.
Darius Garland, Ja. Those guys have, like, I'm not saying they have nothing to say, but like,
Right.
they haven't been the polarizing figures in your league through these kind of, like, LeBron played through lockouts. D Wade was in lockouts. Derrick Rose was in lockouts. Carmelo, like some of these recent icons, for lack of a better word, they've been through all that.
Mm-hmm.
This new wave of guys are just simply living off of that legacy. And it's like when you get to the table with these owners, you don't have those guys.
Well,
you don't have the Boston Green Party.
Have you heard the latest rumors? So allegedly, if the Suns can't find a way to get Jimmy Butler, then Dallas might try to pursue Kevin Durant. And then apparently out in San Francisco, everybody not named Wardell can be had.
Yeah. Shams reported that Windhurst co-signed it. And it's like, why?
Because they want to try to get Steph one more if they can. I mean, I don't think there's any deals out there that's going to make that happen.
Steph has 4 rings.
I know.
He is an all-time great. He is an icon of the sport. And your team has to look like OKC, Boston, 2023 Denver, 2021 Milwaukee, or 2020 Lakers. If your team doesn't have all of those pieces, because each one of the last championship team, they all had bigs that just defended and rebounded. They had a big that was an offensive mismatch for whoever was. They had either a group of shooters or just a great 3-point barrage approach. Because even KCP was knocking out a lot of threes in the bubble.
Right.
Then you had your perennial superstar, LeBron, Giannis, Jokic, Steph. And then with Boston, you had Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum.
Look at that
if
shade.
your team doesn't look like that,
look at that shade. You just couldn't bring yourself to say Kawhi, could you?
Kawhi didn't win a championship.
He did with Toronto.
No, I went back to 2020. The Toronto team.
That was the year before. That was the year before.
Yeah, 29. That Toronto team
did
won
that on
because
purpose to not bring up Kawhi.
If KD plays if KD is healthy, Toronto gets swept, and the scores are probably 118 and 98 for 4 straight games. Like, let's keep it a bean. That dude, he was unstoppable healthy for those 3 years. So, it was unfair how good he was in those 3 years until he had that calf strain and turned to Achilles.
So apparently the Kings want Malik Monk to run the point now that DeAaron Fox is gone. I'm wondering if they're going to try to flip LaVine somewhere because, we saw this LaVine DeRozan thing in Chicago and it wasn't a thing. So maybe on a better team with somebody like
Chicago might have really bad losing culture though. Ever since we saw The Last Dance, ever since they ran Jordan out of town on back-to-back fucking 3-piece essentially.
If y'all go 82-0, still ain't coming back.
and that was the piece that was the way you kind of think was like, yeah, I want to get ahead of it before it falls, but it's like that was the time. That wasn't the time to do it. Like I think you had 2 more years of Eastern Conference guaranteed runs.
And in hindsight,
number 6,
and in
maybe not finals runs, maybe not finals victories, but I think with the way, because that was 98 when he won his 6, right?
Yeah.
So the players that came in between 96, you had your Kobe's, your Iversons, you had like Ray Allen's. You started getting these different kind of guys. You started getting guys that were more like as athletic
You
as
started to see the
Jordan,
turn of like the
and
new, yeah.
So you started getting like these Scottie Pippen guys that were like got a lot of 6'8" guys that can handle the ball. I think Chicago gets one or two of those guys mixed in with their championship team with Phil. I believe Jordan can do what we think Luke and LeBron are going to do, where it's like you take 15 seconds of every other possession off, save your energy, but every fourth possession you get to do whatever you want to do.
But also don't forget
you're knocking
hindsight
down
being
shots
2020, that ended up being a strike shortened season. That next
with
year, like the
in
year
after Jordan.
Yeah, after they got 6, that next year was the 50 game season.
55. That was 55, right?
It was that season. So you might have had fresher legs for the playoffs too.
Easy.
Just saying. But yeah, so the trade deadline is in 2 days. So when we come back on Friday,
it should be at least one more crazy move. More likely, Jimmy Butler's released.
I'm kind of hoping this Kevin Durant thing happens.
Kevin Durant to Dallas.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping that happens. Get him back with his best friend, and
like Adam posted in the group, and he posted the the screenshot, and I was like, I would say cap, but after Saturday, I'm out here like KG screaming anything is possible.
I know. After Saturday, I'm like, hey, watch your back, Jaylen Brown. You know what I'm saying? Watch your back, Anthony Edwards.
if I'm Minnesota, I noticed Julius Randle conversation has been going on, but it's like, so my dad broached that topic to me. I know we're talking about DeAaron Fox, but it's the same thing. It's like, I get that you want to go to San Antonio, but how do you fit with Chris Paul? Does Chris Paul go to the bench? Do you go to the 2 for a little bit, or do you run a 2-point guard system where you have Wemby who can just basically get lob passes and entry passes from either side, and you stretch that way?
Like,
but I don't think anyone's ever played offense like that in the NBA. So I'm just spitballing here.
Theoretically, you would think, like, hey, we saw Chris Paul and Harden, but Harden's bigger and not necessarily a traditional point guard.
Yeah, so, Harden's a 2 guard that D'Antoni had played a 1, and they brought Chris Paul in to take away that stress.
So if it's me, I'm starting Fox and Castle, and Chris Paul's coming off the bench, but that's a whole different conversation because you got to talk Chris Paul into coming off the bench in the first place.
And that's what I mean. It's like,
because DeAaron ain't coming off the bench.
You'd probably put the young guy on the bench, right? Have him run a second unit.
I would think so, but I don't like it.
I think that's an easier sell.
Yeah, it's the easiest.
And tell him he'll get 8 more shots a game.
You know what I mean? But I'm like, you
got to give you tell him you're going to the bench. You got to give him you got to give him a green light.
I might end up with Castle pulling a Fox in 3 years, like said after this, like you know what I mean. So I mean, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. We'll see. Yeah, it's a very. I'm liking the fact that the NBA, like these guys are making moves. I don't know if any of the moves are good or bad moves. I just know that when it comes to sports and success of sports, you can have all the names and the bodies and everything else, and you could win.
Right.
Like I said, my immersion in the sports over the last 10 years and seeing the dynamic from coaching and organization and players and leagues has been like my son's youth programs. And people are like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. It's like, it's a lot of comparisons because my son, shout out, he won the Swiss Army Knife Award because he literally played every position on offense and defense.
Okay.
So it's like when people ask him, like, so what position you play? He was like, well, linebacker, safety, primarily on defense, and then running back, fullback, tight end, wide receiver, and backup quarterback. They're like, really? He's like, and his coach is like, oh yeah, he does all that. So, and
Travis
sometimes
Hunter.
on the field, it's like, okay, everything doesn't translate. Like we have all these ideas. We know we're a good program. We know we have good kids. I personally known a lot of these kids since 2016. A lot of their parents, like I have, like, we spent a lot of times at banquets and games and sidelines and practices. So it's like the organization works well. Like the kids get good swag, they get good, food. They have pasta nights. It's very organized. The parents are very involved. But some organizations just go out and get the biggest kids who live in cities that kind of border where they live, and they put them on the team, and they get the trophies, and it looks like it's well established. But when their high school programs come to play, none of the kids from the youth teams, like, yo, where are your kids at? Oh, like, no, he lives here. He's going to a school in Hamilton. He's going to a school in Trenton. But it was close enough to where parents like, okay, cool. I can drive 15 minutes this way to practice, or 15 minutes this way. What's the difference? Whereas we're kind of out in the boonies. It's like, you're driving to this field. You're going to go to this middle school. You're going to go to this high school. You're going to go to this Greyhound day. And the structure of the organization is going to be up and down because you don't bring all those extra pieces in. And I think NBA teams could probably look at that like, you know what? Can we keep what we have tight in here? That way everybody that flows in here knows their role, knows how to be successful. And we're going to talk about football. The Chiefs do that well.
Yeah, we're going to talk about
Philly
football
does
right now,
that well.
actually.
You can stack your team. The Miami Heatles, the Boston Three Party. The Miami Heatles and the Boston Three Party got 3 rings. And what? We're going to call it 6 years? Because you got 1 or 2 years. So you got the Boston Three Party with KG.
2008.
2008.
And then the Heat won in 12 and 13.
Heat won 12 and 13. In between that, Boston lost to
the Lakers.
The Lakers for one finals. They didn't make another finals. So it's like, even stacking a team with those stars from 2008 until 2015, right? Because LeBron went to
Cleveland
that year in the 14. So 14, 15, because 15 they lost and 16 they won. So from 2008 to 2014, those seasons, you had 2 teams that were pretty much stacked. They got 3 chips. So sometimes just to structure your organization is how you win. And I think Philly does a great job with structure, because people were ready to get rid of Jalen Hurts 2 years ago. And they're like, we're gonna give him $240 million.
So I already know that you be talking a lot of shit. You know,
of course,
and being disrespectful is all get out. But with this Super Bowl, is the public and media going to put Mahomes ahead of Joe Montana?
Well, Mahomes has been ahead of Joe Montana for 2 years, in my opinion. Like, let's keep it a buck. Let's keep it a buck.
You hear this, Residente?
I know it sounds sacrilegious, but Joe Montana had Hall of Famers from the parking lot attendants up to the owners. They all in the Hall of Fame.
Their number one fan is in the Hall of Fame.
He had a great career. It was weird with the Steve Young thing. I think about it now, like, because I knew growing up, I was watching football. I was a young kid. I loved Ickey Woods. I loved the dance he did. So when they played the Super Bowl against the Bengals, I was like, okay, I love Roger Craig. I always felt like, in my mind, Roger Craig scored every time he touched the ball. Like, I remember growing up thinking, like, every time he touched the ball, he did that little high step, stutter step, and he scored. Like, I remember thinking, like, they were that good. John Ratman, John Taylor, Obviously Jerry Rice,
Brent Jones,
Ken Norton, Ronnie Lott, George Seifert,
Charles
uh,
Haley.
Charles Haley, Dion was there for. Like I just remember all the legends that they had like throughout the 80s and 90s, and it's like you had the stacked team and a great culture in Joe Montana. It's not a slight to Joe Montana that I think Mahomes has
No,
exceeded him,
no.
but Mahomes as a quarterback, I know quarterback wins and losses is one thing, but it's like he does play a major role in their victories. Currently, he's played 20 postseason football games. On top of the fact he has two regular season MVPs, he probably should have three, but two for sure. Two are locked in that he has in his house. He's 17-3 in the postseason. One game, they got an interception, but a defensive end's head was offsides, which had nothing to do with him. Like he put them in position for them to be up and win. Tom Brady gets the ball batted in the air, it's intercepted, but D4's helmet's offsides. So they lose that game. After it goes to overtime, they don't change the rule, by the way.
Right.
Throw it out there, 13-second
game.
That came later. They don't change the rule. So that's AFC Championship game in Arrowhead. Second-year league MVP, 50-plus touchdowns. Then his next loss in the playoffs is in the Super Bowl to Tom Brady. So once again, in the Super Bowl, that's his next loss. And then his third loss in the playoffs was to Joe Burrow. But they had an 18-point lead, and Joe Burrow is just as special at the moment where he was special against Kansas City as Tom Brady was on his hierarchy.
You know what the craziest part of it is? Out of the whole run, he's played 2 road playoff games.
2 road playoff games. Won them both. He beat Joe Burrow. He beat Josh Allen. He beat Lamar Jackson, his contemporaries. There's no one in the league that can compare to him. You could only compare him to the greats.
Okay, so this is now he's the I'm chasing that ghost in Chicago, right? So Okay, so let me ask you this then, and like let me change it a little bit.
Chasing ghosts. You know what Jay said in the corporate takeover. Because they got me chasing ghosts.
Anyway, so what would Patrick Mahomes have to do? We'll get back to this in a second, but what would he have to do for you to say that he passed Tom Brady?
You know what? Tom Brady is a slick motherfucker. And Tom Brady knows the likelihood of. Let's talk about Tom Brady for a second, because people like to shit on Tom Brady. But Tom Brady played 22 seasons, 21, 22 seasons, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that includes a year when he got injured on the first play of the first game against the Chiefs. They changed the rule.
How ironic is that?
Yeah. And so,
right?
and Tom Brady talked about it. He was like, something you realize is that you are not bigger than the game, because like, once I got to the sideline, they blew the whistle and they started the next play. He's like, I haven't even made it off the field yet. It's like they were already running the next play. Like I'm not even off the field. Like they're taking me into the tunnel,
right?
In Kansas City, and it's like, so he realized like he wasn't bigger than the game. But he played like 21 years, 22 years. He went to 15 championship games. I know people talk about Super Bowls and Super Bowl wins. He went to 15 championship games in his NFL career. We could talk about organizations that haven't been to 5.
Shit, there's some that haven't been to 1.
Like, yeah. But like, just like a simple number. All the years your organizations existed, 1961 until 2025. And your organization hasn't been to 5 championship games. He went to 15, 14 in the AFC, and either 13 in the AFC and then 1 in the NFC. I think it's 14 or 15, but it was like a lot. Like I think it's 15.
Mount
and then Brady, 10 Super Bowls. So he has 10 championship game victories where there's organizations that don't have 10 playoff wins
Yeah,
in the
Mahomes is
last 20
already
something
number
years.
2 in wins now. You know what I mean? He passed Joe Montana this year, so
I
but
think
he's
he's
still.
tied. He's in
I think he passed
playoff
him with
wins
the
is tied.
AFC Championship game. I think he passed him.
I think they're tied. He's tied. I think he's tied at 17. But he's passed
I
both.
thought Montana only had 16, but
But he's passed like organizations. But Tom Brady being
yeah,
the
it's
fact that
Mahomes.
Tom
Yeah,
Brady has
Mahomes has one more than Montana, so the AFC Championship game put him over. But
pushed
even
him
with
over.
that being
Okay.
said, and all the stuff that you're saying about Mahomes, Brady still has 18 more playoff wins. But
It's
so Mount
Brady's
Brady is
numbers
a
are
tough.
ridiculous. He has 100,000 yards passing or something like that.
Yeah, so Mount Brady is a tough hill to climb. But I think that with this Super Bowl, I think I'm ready to put Big Red
Above Belichick,
at the top of the mountain.
you haven't.
And I actually last year I did do it, but not officially. But this would just be a
Are
cherry
we
on top.
in this? Okay, play devil's advocate. Are we putting Reed ahead because he had the early success?
Yeah, I'm just looking at whole career.
He had the early success, but no Super Bowls, and then he got the guy at quarterback, and now he has Super Bowl success.
Well, he had 5.
Are
He
we
had 5
knocking
championship
Belichick for
games.
having the guy early and having a Super Bowl success, and then not having the guy after?
No, we're just looking at the whole picture.
Keep going. I got to grab some.
We're just looking at the whole picture because Belichick had a losing record in Cleveland before he even came to New England. Andy Reid had 5 championship game appearances in Philadelphia, and when you go back and look at it, they lost to Belichick in the Super Bowl when Donovan McNabb was throwing up. T.O. shouldn't even have been playing, but that's just how tough he is, but Andy Reid, no matter who he had, because I guess when you look at specialties, it evens out because Belichick had good defenses over the last couple of years. He just had Mac Jones, and that just wasn't good enough. But Andy Reid, it didn't matter if he had Alex Smith, if he had Matt Moore starting a few games, if he had Chad Henne starting some games. It didn't matter who the quarterback was. It didn't matter who the personnel was. This is what Andy Reid does. And then if you go back and look at the last couple of years, they've been playing makeshift offense, even though offense is his specialty, right? Like you lost Tyreek Hill, or you traded Tyreek Hill, or whatever that was. You traded Tyreek Hill. But then you've been replacing him with things like Juju Smith-Schuster and, Mecole Hardman. Like you made Mecole Hardman a playoff savant, no pun intended. Like Kareem Hunt, and then Isaiah Pacheco's been out.
Bill Belichick and Tom Brady had that same kind of run with that same caliber wide receiver, Shea Cardwell.
They did, but Belichick is a defensive dude.
Jabbar Gaffney, Troy Brown, like
David Patton.
A lot of these guys.
But Belichick's a defensive dude, though, so that's why I was trying to make that note about Andy Reid, was that it can't just be so. Like with Belichick, a lot of times people have the conversation of it was Brady more than it was him. But Belichick's a defensive dude. With Andy Reid, even if you take away, even if you take away the Mahomes years, just looking at how the team played, they were always in the playoffs, whether it was there or Philadelphia.
I think that the NFC Championship run that he went on with Philly and McNabb, because we saw McNabb in Washington and we saw him in Minnesota. He was out there looking like your squadron flag football quarterback.
Yeah, and the same way Belichick came up under Parcells, Andy Reid came up under Holmgren. So they both have like championship experience as coordinators as well.
I'll say allow your argument, but I think the only thing that hurts your argument, if you are Andy Reid is the GOAT, is that in these pressure situations, it feels as if Mahomes makes the "I'm better than your defensive scheme" play, and Kansas City office has done a great job. I don't know how they're compensating Spags and Nagy with, to the point where they don't reply to Instagram messages or Facebook messages or text messages from these other teams or carrier pigeons or whatever they're getting, because Spags 2 years ago for sure could have gotten any open head coaching job.
Mm-hmm.
I think Nagy over the last, after the Super Bowl last year or on that run, I think he could have gotten some interviews and some calls. I don't recall hearing either one of them taking an interview. So I think that's a testament to the organization. But it takes a village, and I believe
And
the
I ain't
humility
forget
of your
Belichick giving
star.
up 41 in the Super Bowl to Nick Foles either.
Yeah, but I mean, this is NFL. Like, guys getting open, they're gonna score points. You're gonna get out scheme. He didn't play Malcolm Butler, and I don't know if that's ever came out why. I don't think I've ever heard it in my own ears.
Yeah, I'm
why
not
Malcolm
sure.
Butler didn't play that game. So,
but anyway, we can move
with
on.
Andy,
I just wanted to bring
because
that
we're
up.
talking about legacy. Because
Right.
that was one of
I was going to
the
ask you
pieces
about
we're talking
Jalen Hurts. Like, what does a Super Bowl do for him? Like, as far as how he's perceived, because I think right now he's perceived as, you're a football player, and of course we talk about you steal Saquon's touchdowns, but I don't think that at large people view Jalen Hurts as a top quarterback.
I am anti-legacy guy.
Yeah, I don't even like talking about it, to be honest with you.
Well, I think it's an interesting conversation, because I knew when I said it to you, you were going to offer a very diverse perspective on it that I hadn't heard before. My piece, and I'm going to get out the way early because you say I do this a lot. LeBron making it to the finals, you're like, oh, now you're doing that LeBron thing. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying it up front right now.
I'm watching LeBron right now with a 21-point lead.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that the Seattle, New England, Malcolm Butler, Marshawn Lynch, Pete Carroll throwing a slant at the goal line, Darrell Bevell game.
Mm-hmm.
That game, that was Tom Brady's 5th ring.
Right.
When Tom Brady went to the bench, his team had a lead. And very similar to the Eli David Tyree helmet catch game, he's like, I'm getting my ass kicked all game long, but I did the best I could to get us a lead. He got Randy Moss a touchdown, 14-10. I'm going to the bench. And then Eli breaks out of the grass, throws it up in the middle of the field. David Tyree catches the ball in his head. They go on to win, scored a go-on-ahead touchdown, win the game 17-14.
Mm-hmm.
Did that hurt Brady's legacy that they went 18-1? When he went to the bench, they had the lead, and then they got a miracle catch.
No,
Same
I don't
thing
think
happened
it
in
hurts
the
his
Seattle
legacy.
game.
I just think it's something that people can make fun of him about because they don't have much else to talk about.
So, to me, in my personal opinion, and it's been my opinion ever since I really started kind of formulating like these sports talks, making it to the Super Bowl and having a worthy performance on display, I don't think it hurts your legacy. John Elway was getting blown out in his Super Bowls. So it was like, yo, dog, are you not wired for this moment? And then he got his 2 against the Packers and unfortunately against the Falcons.
What up,
but
Eugene
before
Robinson?
that, yeah, just trying to get you trying to get a hooker on the street. Like, come on, man, you're in the Super Bowl. Just walk around your hotel. Just walk around your hotel with no shirt on and like, yo, who's trying to hang out with an NFL star? It's that easy. Like, I don't know how dudes didn't learn that grown up with game. I'm like, you got abs and you got a check. Just walk around a Miami hotel and you'll scoop something for free. But yeah, then he got burnt by Rod Smith. So I started watching the game after that. But that's the piece. So it's like I think a lot of these I think Jalen Hurts, what he's done, I think he's shown his personal stamp on football. I think what he did from high school up until now is like, this guy's different. You don't have a single outburst video of him. You don't have a single video of him pouting. He got benched for Tua, who he's obviously better than, and he always has been. And he stood there, and then when Tua couldn't finish, he came in and finished. Transferred, was a Heisman finalist at another school, came in behind Carson Wentz, played his role, took his spot, got paid, been to 2 Super Bowls. So it's like he's done everything we've all wanted every other quarterback we love to do. Joe Burrow's only been in 1 Super Bowl. Josh Allen hasn't been to any. Lamar hasn't been to any. Justin Herbert hasn't been to any.
Goff has been the one.
He played the best. He played the best individual game in the Super Bowl 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Mahomes just played the moments better. Mahomes just makes Mahomes 7-yard run on 4th and 1 always happens during the 2-minute warning rush. No timeouts or 1 timeout left. His plays happen when it's winning time. That's the difference between him and a lot of other quarterbacks. But what Jalen Hurts is doing, he's doing everything that we've been told all these other guys could do. And I'm glad he got paid like these other guys.
Right. Well, we also have to have a conversation, I guess, about Sirianni as well. You know,
I fuck with Sirianni
if they pull this off. You know, like you can't call him immature no more. You know,
you still can.
he done grown up.
You absolutely still can.
He's coming of age.
You can call him obnoxious, but you have to be honest because you have Andy Reid on your GOAT list with the win here, right? Andy Reid didn't coach in 2 Super Bowls as an Eagles coach. He did it in 4 years. So like that in this free agency, big money acquisition, demanding trade era.
But I ain't gonna act like Andy Reid ain't have no Todd Pinkstons and Fred X's and stuff like that.
Oh no, let's not keep it twisted. I'm gonna shout out the Tennessee Titans. I saw a clip today. The guy was asking, what's the boy name? I'm drawing a blank. I don't know why. He was asking him, God damn, why am I drawing a blank? I'm literally drawing a blank. Number 11. The wide receiver, number 11. Why am I drawing a blank? Titans? No, for the Eagles.
Oh, AJ Brown?
AJ Brown. Why am I? I was there. I couldn't focus at all.
No, you threw me off because you said the Titans, and I was like, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So somebody asked him today, did you hear about the Luka trade? And is he finally happy not being part of the most lopsided trade in sports history? When they gave up AJ Brown, they gave up a 1st-round pick guy, AJ Brown, and then they went and drafted the guy they thought was going to be the next AJ Brown. Then he showed up to camp throwing up, couldn't handle the heat. So it's kind of funny, but to think about it, like Howard Roseman made that move. Devontae Smith, I saw something else. The Giants were prepared to get him at 11, and Philly grabbed him at 10, and then, the rest is history. So you got to be lucky. You got to be fortunate, but you still need players to make that luck play off. So I like Jalen Hurts. I think the issue with his legacy is going to be in this era of quarterbacks, those guys all throw the ball at a different level. I don't say a different level. I guess level's the word, but they make different plays. They make different plays throwing the ball. It's not like he doesn't make the plays that they need. Like Justin Herbert just has that rollout, point, 60-yard bomb. Josh Allen has the point, 60-yard bomb. Everything's breaking down. Lamar has the open field, outrunning the DB to the end zone. Whereas Jalen is like Chevy Silverado, come around here. I'm reliable and dependable. I can haul a trailer. I could put your lumber in here. I have everything here to help you build your house. Whereas Lamar's Lamborghini and Josh Allen, Herbert, Burrow has Jamar Chase, so a lot of his throws are like, oh my God, I can't believe he made that throw. But really, it's Jamar Chase being open to make that catch. So it's like Jalen just doesn't have that. I don't know if his legacy changes until he would have to win this weekend and then win another one for people to say, oh, that wasn't a fluke. Whereas a guy like Burrow, if Burrow would have, granted, we're just speaking hypotheticals. I think if Joe Burrow makes this beats the Chiefs next year in the AFC Championship, because all we know for the last 7 years is you got to beat the Chiefs. You got to play the Chiefs to make the Super Bowl in the NFL since 2000, carried it to 18.
All right, last question from me. With this Super Bowl win, Howie Roseman a Hall of Famer?
I think he already is.
Okay, fair enough.
I saw a video the other day. It was like it was a Philly podcast, but they ran down like the last 3 years, first 3 round draft picks. So that's your Quinyon Mitchells, Cooper DeJean, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis,
Nakobe Dean,
Devontae Smith. That's just off the top of my head. And then you got your Saquon signing, you got your trade for AJ Brown, locking up Hurts, getting rid of Wentz. Like all these moves have made Philly this. Short of last year, whatever happened in their locker room last year needs to be studied. Because they went Super Bowl, then they went 10-1 and completely fell off the map.
I think they finished 11-6.
Yeah, they finished something like 11-6, and then they got run out of the building by Tampa Bay. Granted, it was in Tampa Bay, but it was like you guys were 10-1 a month ago.
Yeah, y'all were way talented than them.
So that needs to be studied. So to have that kind of steep fall off to the point where I fucking picked the Cowboys to win the division this year, even though they didn't make the moves in the offseason, because I thought whatever that cliff that the Eagles all fell off of was so detrimental that it was going to carry over. And then they're back in the Super Bowl. And at any point in the playoffs, short of, I know LA got the ball back in the snow. And I was thinking, like, are they going to, because when Saquon scored the long touchdown, they were up 28-15. I was like, is this game over? And then
I do remember that, though, because I picked Philly to win the division. And then, as we were doing our playoff preview, I said that Philly was the team that I had the most confidence in getting to the Super Bowl. So, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so, but this is the thing. I agree with you in that. I said I stuck with my pick because my pick was still alive.
Right,
I picked Detroit and Kansas City. I was like,
right.
My pick was still alive, and it didn't look like Detroit was falling apart.
Right.
They still had won the division. They won 15 games. It wasn't like they were kind of stumbling into the playoffs, and they were like 10-2, and all of a sudden the playoffs comes around and they're 11-6. It's like, okay, but they still won. It wasn't one of those situations. But yeah, Philly's intriguing. I like what they do. I think what they do well travels. It's just that I think the Washington game might have instilled a little bit of false confidence in the Philly supporters, not necessarily the fans, but the people who think
Right,
they're going to
right,
win. Because Austin Eckler doesn't fumble. I know it's all hypothetical.
right,
If he
right, right, right.
just if he gets touchdown right then, Jaden Daniels still has the ball. There's a real potential that they go into the fourth quarter down 3
Down one
points.
score. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Well, that'll be Sunday, so we'll be back Friday with our official picks.
Yeah.
So Mr. Logical brought up a topic to me that I found most intriguing. He asked me, what if baseball had a salary cap? And honestly, I had never even thought about it before because I think it's such a far-fetched thing that will ever happen that I just never thought about it.
They need one.
Okay. Tell me
Like
why.
a couple of pieces, a couple of things I'm gonna look at here. All
So,
right.
okay, so while
So
you got it, or because I was going to
the
ask you a
new
question, but you got, okay.
yeah, I got a couple of notes, and then you can ask me the question, and we'll
Okay.
chime in. But like, just a basic note:
Okay.
the New York Mets owner is personally worth $21 billion.
Okay.
So even if he was like, you know what, I'm willing to stake 10% of my net worth to build this team, it is still $2.1 billion.
Right.
Just that's just his net worth. There are the teams, the valuations of each one of these of the not every team, but I'm just going to give you the number as they
Right.
rank from
Right.
17 from 1 through 30.
Okay.
The MLB teams 17 through 30, they're all worth under $2 billion.
Okay.
So as a team, 45% of your leagues are not worth 10% of the richest owner who just gave Soto was $765 million.
Something like that. Yeah.
All right. So $765 million. That means he still has $1.4 million if he's willing to risk 10% of his
10%.
net
Right.
worth. He still has $1.4 million to throw at players if he personally just threw his money in the pot. That's still more than the team's worth from, like, I think 17. Here, I'm gonna get the actual number. All right, team number 17, right,
Right.
is okay. If I'm going 1.4 million, so we go Colorado Rockies at 20. Their
Okay.
valuation is 1.45 or 1.47.
That's nuts.
So if if Cohen is willing to give 765 to another guy, he still has 1.3 and a half, 1.4 and a half of his 10% that he can play with to get players. That is more than 33% of your league is worth. And he has that available. And now you have the deferment with the Dodgers doing that deferment. It's like, I get if you didn't have the money,
Right.
like Bobby Bonilla with the deferment. I think somebody else had a real famous deferment. Granted, it's still the Mets. That's why baseball needs a salary cap. Because if we look at the NFL, Cincinnati had to sell stadium rights to pay Joe Burrow's contract. But in MLB, it's like, oh, I'm worth 21 billion and I can use
I'll
10%
make
of
it
this to
back
buy my team. I'll make it back. I'll make it back and I'll make it back in ticket sales alone over
this
the
season.
next 3
Yeah.
years. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking about this and I was trying to wrap my head around it, like how it will work. So to some degree, I understand your points as far as why it needs to be a thing, because you have welfare teams, for lack of better words. Part of the reason why a team like Oakland is going to Las Vegas. is because they can't keep up with the Joneses or they won't keep up with the Joneses, and I think that is more or less the problem within itself because Oakland was fighting with the city to try to get this stadium built. They've been planning that stadium since the 70s at least. And that stadium wasn't even full when they were winning World Series. So a lot of Oakland fans that I argued with last year brought up Fisher, their owner now, who owns like the Gap, Old Navy, all that stuff like that. They brought him up as a piece of shit owner. And that's why things are the way that they are. And I'm like, but what about the owner before that? You know what I mean? But so here's my question that I wanted to ask you. So if I'm looking at this, thinking about this, so looking at college football, for example, the conferences have their TV deals and the schools they split that up. But you also have like your regional deals, all that kind of stuff like that. So looking at baseball, if I were to have a salary cap, how does that affect things like the Yes Network and WGN and NESEN and all that stuff like that?
I think a lot of those networks are already taking a hit. WGN was one of my favorite networks growing up. I remember I used to watch Night Court on there. I used to watch the Cubs games. The Yes Network. You just got to negotiate a good deal, and it has to be the understanding that.
But you're not using any of that money towards your team, right? Is what I'm trying to get at.
Well, it depends on your situation. If you're behind the eight ball and you are the Chicago Cubs or you're the Milwaukee Brewers and you're chasing the Phillies, because right now, if I go top 5 or top 10, get my source here together because it's tripping. So you go because Phillies are 9. I think their evaluation is 2.5 million.
Okay.
You have who's one? One obviously is the Yankees, 2 Dodgers, 3 Red Sox, Cubs, not a lot of success. San Francisco Giants, New York Mets, Angels, and we know about Mike Trout's career with their limited success.
Right.
Braves, Phillies, Cardinals. But one being the Yankees, value 7.1 billion. Dodgers 4.8 billion, Red Sox 1.5, Chicago 4.1, San Francisco 3.7. Those are only teams over 3 billion. The Mets at 2.9 billion is their valuation. It's due to their lack of success. The guy who owns them is personally worth 21 billion.
Right.
So if you in baseball doesn't have the appeal of I'm going to ride the success of other marketable franchises. Phoenix sold, I believe, for like 4.5 billion or 4.25 billion a couple years ago. Mark Cuban sold 73.3% of the Mavericks for 3.85 billion. So if you just did that math,
yeah, Washington went for over 6 billion in football.
6 in football. So a lot of these other major sports are just kind of living off the price set by the previous team. I believe the Cowboys are something like $7 billion.
Mm-hmm.
If not like $7 billion in evaluation, yeah. But negotiation, Jerry Jones, savvy guys, like, listen, yeah, I know it says this $7 billion. But as soon as you take it over, it's going to ramp up because people want to see me gone. Whatever the case may be.
Right.
So you got a team like the Marlins, valuation $1 billion, and you can see what their fan turnout. They got the new stadium, no fans in it. Looks good. Looks great. Looks great for all-star games. Looks great for pitchers. A lot of moving stuff in the audiences like dolphins and like swordfish and waves and all kinds of crazy stuff happening in the crowd, except people buying tickets to watch you play baseball. And what happens is you just don't have the resources to keep your players. You don't have the resource to entice other players. So the players that you do end up having who have some success, they go to the Dodgers.
So
they go to the Angels.
So you know what I was thinking about, because I try to take a different angle.
Always.
So what I was looking at was, in my mind, a salary cap means, or should mean more parity. Because like you don't have the Yankees or the Dodgers just buying up the block. So like, for example, last year, in 1 week, just in 1 week, the Dodgers spent $1.1 billion on 3 different players. So that was Shohei, Glasnow, and Yamamoto, right?
And the thing about it, they're not paying out from like 2034 until 2045, right?
Right.
Something crazy like that.
Yeah. So
something's got to go. Something can't be allowed.
Well, this is my thing. So it took me down a rabbit hole.
Okay.
And this is where I ended up.
All right.
So since the year 2000.
This is going to be good, ladies and gentlemen. Brace yourself.
Since the year 2000. Major League Baseball has had 17 different franchises win the World Series.
Okay, that's good parity.
The NBA, for comparison, had 11. And then the NFL had 13. But I'll give you 14 if you want to count LA and St. Louis as separate, but I don't. So 13. So from a parity standpoint,
we got 13.
So as a parity standpoint of who wins the titles, even with these disadvantages, the Diamondbacks have won a title. The Marlins have won a title prior to the window that I used. You had, my brain is not working on me, but the Rangers just won their first World Series 2 years ago.
You said the Royals?
The Rangers. They just
the
won
Royals
their first
got one.
Yeah, the Royals got one in that window. Yeah.
Royals got one. Rangers. Houston got one. Astros.
Yep. The Giants.
The Yankees got one in 2009.
Yankees,
and they were the
Red
primary
Sox.
ones. Red Sox got a couple. Since 2000?
Yeah, since 2000.
White Sox got at least one.
Yeah.
I believe Boston got 2. The
Cardinals.
Giants. The Giants got a couple.
Giants
in
have
that
a couple.
window, right?
Yep.
Post Barry Bonds, because Barry Bonds never won one.
Right.
Which
the
is
Angels,
crazy.
Because they were the ones that beat Barry Bonds.
The Angels got one?
Yeah, they were the ones that beat Barry Bonds in that series.
Okay. But
so the reason that I brought that up is because, for the conversation that we're having before, correct. Like if we were talking to someone that had no baseball knowledge or wasn't really a follower, they would probably assume that the Yankees and Dodgers win all the titles. You know what I mean? And they do if you look at it from a historical lens. But, looking at the modern game, it's not true.
Yeah, but if you look at the end, if you simply look at the championship, who won the World Series at the end, there's a lot of parity. The thing with baseball, and baseball is unlike any other sport professionally that I've really noticed, is that their season starts March 28th to April 1st, somewhere in that window. There are teams, multiple teams, that are mathematically done July 18th.
That sounds like the NBA to me.
But this is the difference. They are done July 18th, right? So they'll trade off whatever assets they have to, so they'll trade off their starting left-hander, their home run hitter, their contact hitter, their stolen base guy. They'll trade off their 4 best guys to Boston, New York, LA, Houston, and get Houston's best pitching prospect,
Right.
best shortstop prospect, and just basically they'll start their rebuild for like this year. The 2025 MLB season is going to run from April 1st to October 31st. We'll just go with that as a framework. There's going to be teams that are done August 1st. Like it's a
And
wrap.
see,
I'm
and
not
that
sure
was one of the
exactly when
notes
the
that I
trade
wrote.
deadline is. So those teams are done. So you'll get parity because the Royals will give up their top prospects to get the Pirates' best players and go on a run in
Well, that was one of the
2025.
things that I was going to bring up. Like in a salary cap, you probably hold on to some of those guys a little longer and actually see their development all the way through. But the main
There's a
question that I wanted
penalty
to ask you,
involved, but pretty much you could just pass off the whole contract. It's like, so none of this is on me. I gave Mike Wilson, my strong right-handed closer, I gave him a 3-year deal worth $90 million. I'm paying him $30 million a year, but it's August 1st and I'm 17 games back
right?
in my division. Let me go ahead and just offload this and get all the pieces I can get from this team that thinks they are a strikeout away from winning the World Series. That's
Yeah.
what baseball gives you without the salary cap, but that requires you to have 2 or 3 down years as the Kansas City Royals, as the Milwaukee Brewers. Like when
Or
you are a team that doesn't have like a lot of money, you have to have like down years, and then you make these trades with these teams that are constantly up. You make the trade with Philly, you make the trade with Anaheim, you make the trade with the Dodgers, you make the trade with, or maybe a team that
okay,
think,
so
you know what,
let me ask you
we're on the
this.
cusp.
Let me ask you this. So I do have a
Yeah.
main question I want to get to, but since you just
All
said
right.
that, let me run with that. So what's the difference between that and is it okay? Is it the number of players on a team? Because I know we've had similar conversations with the NBA. And, I would say big market, small market. And then you would say, well, the small market team just got to spend money. Doesn't that
Well,
apply here too?
with baseball, baseball is your ultimate production sport because in football, you can win a game 16-13 ugly.
Uh-huh.
If, Cooper Kupp catches a slant and you get to kick a 35-yard field goal.
Right.
You can win a game in the snow and the rain if you hand the ball off 35 times. You can win the game ugly because there's only a few people that can really negatively impact your game. I
Right.
can just keep giving the ball to Saquon. I don't have to take Saquon out to put some third string running back in. Whereas in
Right. And then once
baseball,
I do that, he can't come back in.
he can't come back in,
Right.
stuff like
Right.
that. So with baseball, it's like I need all hands on deck. And if it's not working, you move on and you start over. But the small market piece of it is that the market doesn't dictate how well you get on base and score runs. Because if you get on second and the guy hits a single and you have any decent foot speed, the likelihood of you scoring and going up 1-0 is easy. So you need a guy that can hit the ball in between first and second when you got a guy on second base that can come around. In the NFL, you have to have a game changer at this position. You have to have a dynamic wide receiver at this position, or you have to be ultra dynamic Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow at quarterback to overcome your wide receiver deficiencies or your defensive deficiencies. Most MLB teams, you hit a pop fly, a guy's gonna get to it. Guys aren't just out there like it's not a bunch of guys who can't track a ball from center field, hit to the wall. Every team has a guy that can do that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You just need the guys that can make the timely hits. You need guys that have enough experience guys can stay healthy enough. And if
Mhm.
you don't have that, if you don't have those pieces, that's why managers get fired so quickly in baseball. Because like so many people are just somewhat interchangeable that you can just trade off. You can
Mhm.
make like, okay, Zach Greinke, I think he got signed to the Diamondbacks. Um, and when the Diamondbacks were kind of having their run, they're like, it's not going to work out. We already paid you like $120 million. But the Warriors were like, yo, I think we're a left-hander away. I don't know if he's a left-hander, but like, I think we're just a pitcher away to get, I think we need another pitcher to make 4 and 5 in our rotation. The Pirates have a terrible season, but they got a good pitcher we can use. And the Diamondbacks have a terrible year. They have a good pitcher we can use.
Right.
We can give them this prospect we got from the Dominican Republic 2 years ago that's in AAA. And they can build around him going forward. And when these teams make these trades, they just bow out on the season.
Right.
So when the Diamondbacks dump all their assets that are currently playing in the major leagues, they get whatever they get from these other teams, and then they play whoever they have to play. And then if they go, if they finish the year, 72 and 90, it's like, okay, cool. We had a good run. We got these prospects going forward.
Okay, so the main question that I wanted to get to and to close up on
Yeah.
is, do you think that having a salary cap, because I know we've talked about this a couple of times in the last few years, do you think having a salary cap will make baseball more popular?
I believe it could if they just kind of look at what basketball did and not follow it 100%. Just figure out better ways to keep your young talent in Kansas City, in Tampa Bay, in Milwaukee, in both Chicago teams, because we tune in to watch Aaron Judge hit the ball.
Uh-huh.
If Giancarlo Stanton was on the Royals, we would tune in to Royals games to watch him hit the ball. But since both of them are on the Yankees, I only have to watch the Yankee game. And like you have Soto, who is now a Met, but if you're really like into Soto, you like, I can watch Soto,
Pete
Garrett
Alonso.
Cole, Pete Alonso, Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, the
Oh, you're
New
talking about on the
York
Yankees.
Yankees
Okay.
pinstripe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could watch all of these guys in one game. I don't have to tune in to the Marlins versus the Pirates. But with a salary cap, I think you'd be able to keep one or two of these stars.
Right.
Like I forgot the pitcher's name in Pittsburgh that's dating
Is it
the
like
LSU. I think it's
Stein or
like
something like that? Or, yeah.
Steiner, yeah. Steichen or Steiner or something along those lines. Well, Pittsburgh is not a big market. I think it's a great city. I've been to Pittsburgh once. It was a dope weekend.
Oh,
I love it. I
Skeens.
love the way the city looks.
Yeah.
Skiing.
Skeens. Yeah.
Yeah. So he is, he's dating this popular LSU NIL star.
Right.
Does his agent say, hey, man, you should call? Does he tell his agent, find out what Steve Cohen's willing to pay to get me to New York so Livy can launch her makeup brand, whatever it is?
Right.
And again, I'm not trying to be dismissive of like how the relationships work or how you use the market that you're in. But as a baseball, if I'm running baseball, I'm like, no, I need you in Pittsburgh. You can lean on her star, or you can lean on her celebrity is all you want. But I need you to stay in Pittsburgh. So in August, when I have these games, when I have Pittsburgh versus Cincinnati for a weekend series on ESPN from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I have star power there. And I like baseball
Yeah.
needs star power where they are
Yeah.
because they
And that's
used to.
how I was kind of looking at it from the standpoint
Yeah,
of going off of our previous, I guess, iteration of this conversation of theoretically with a salary cap, more teams would stick around for longer and have a chance. So like especially now that they've expanded the wild card with the extra team, per league or
Yeah.
whatever.
And
So now you have
a fan of their playoff
no, I'm
set
not.
up, but it's like,
I like it,
yeah,
but
I
I
just
just
think that teams wouldn't just basically give up in July.
right,
You got
right,
you got two. If you give up post All-Star break, you got the rest of July, August, and all of September to play out and charge people tickets.
Well,
Like I
it
was talking
could
about
look
the
like the
White Sox.
NBA play-in, right? Where we're like, hey, like in the NBA, like, hey, there's 10 spots, and these final 5 teams are in range to get into that 10 spot. So for baseball, it could be the same thing where it's like, hey, this last wild card spot, we got 7 teams down here that are within 2.5 games of each other with 10 games left.
Yeah.
And now you got
You
a
know,
reason to watch, because the playoffs are on the line.
like a team like the Oakland A's. We talk about the Moneyball with Brad Pitt, Jonah Hill. Great movie. I love the movie. I love all sports movies. It's some of the best
Right.
sports movies. League
Rest
of
in
Their Own
peace,
is probably
Billy
my
Bean.
favorite. But there's been so many years since that Moneyball window where you look up at the standings in June and they've probably played through April, May, June. So that 90-day window, MLB's probably played about 78 games, give or take.
Uh-huh.
About 70, 80 games, because they don't get a lot of breaks. So
Right.
conservatively, they play 75 games in that first between April, May through June. So July 1st, they played about 75, 75 games. Teams could literally be 20 and 55 and just be like, we're done. But I think with a salary cap, you wouldn't be able to dump those guys off. Guys probably understand once you get to like 20, you're like at 19 wins and 40 losses in your first 59 games, or 19 and 30 in your first 50 games. You're like, I'm probably in a position where I can get out of here.
Right.
So maybe my wrist hurts.
Right.
Because I'm looking to get traded to a bigger market. But I think with the salary cap, like I said, you don't have Aaron Judge and Stanton and Soto all on the same team in the same lineup. You don't have Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, and any other Japanese prospect that comes out on the Dodgers getting a $500 million contract, but they're getting paid $7 million for the next 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then after 9 years, they're getting their $51.5 million for the next 10 years. It's like, how is that fair to a team that can't project that far? Like the Marlins, with their valuation of $1 billion, they can't bring in Ohtani, Mike Trout, and Garrett Cole from the Yankees and offer them
I don't even know if they
all
would go there if they could.
all 10-year deals, $700 million each, and be like, yo, we're going to start paying you in 2032. It's like, we don't even know if you're going to have the money in 2032.
Yeah.
You don't have like, how you going to make that happen? But
Damn, JJ be cussing?
Yeah. Excessively. So, and that's my piece with the salary cap. Granted, it would have to be the introduction of, hey, we're doing a salary cap. Then pros and cons, max number of players, max number of guys getting deferred. Because that was a conversation, like I said, me and my pops, I bounced a lot of these ideas off him before I talked to you. It's like, I get it from a layaway plan. People do it all the time. People like, you know what? I'm going on this cruise. My birthday's September. Say I want to do a birthday cruise, but I got like 10 people that I want to go, and the cruise is, whatever, $1,800. We'll just go with that, with the plane tickets and everything else. Like, yo, though, let's do this cruise. It's in 7 months on my birthday. You have 5 months to pay it off. That makes sense to me. As a normal, rational person, deferring your money, like, listen, I'm getting paychecks every couple of weeks for the next few months. I'll break off 10% of each, and pay for this cruise.
Right.
That's fine. But you can't have 3, 4 players on your team that you sign this year, like this week. It's February, first week of February. You're signing players, and they are signing to get their first big ass check February 2029.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, dog, that's literally 4 whole years. Like, how are you
Right.
able to do that when the Brewers can't do that?
Well, I think
Or
that's
the
what,
Marlins can't do
yeah, that
that?
was with the Shohei thing where he's gonna get
Shohei's
like,
deal is probably like the craziest. Like,
yeah.
I can't believe this made it through whatever quality control process it is in the MLB office
Well,
in New York or LA or wherever it are.
I think baseball leadership is real to some degree. It's real short-sighted. You know what I mean? Because they make money just because they have 162 games. You know what I mean? And I think that they're short-sighted and look at it almost through an NBA lens. Like I'm sure if you left it up to baseball, they would love to have New York and LA any chance they could have. You know what I mean? And against each other is even better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think that's where the game got stalled because, eventually that runs out. People get tired of it. Like the Cavs and the Warriors, right? It was cool, Steph against LeBron, but there came a point where it was just like, but I
All right.
know this is what it's going to be. Whereas baseball, you don't necessarily run into that part of it because usually the hottest pitcher in the postseason is usually what carries the day. So even if you're the
Yeah.
very last seed, if your pitcher's out here throwing heat, you have a great
And
chance to win the
you
World
get
Series.
some timely hits. Because dudes don't swing the bat in the playoffs either.
Right. That
Like
too.
it's a lot of 2-1 games. I'm like, just fucking swing. But they know it's a finality to that. And it's like a very finite amount of opportunity you
Well, they
have.
also do the analytics. You know what I mean? Analytics has infiltrated
They're
baseball.
probably more the analytics have probably been more detrimental to baseball than basketball and even football.
Right. 100%. I do agree with that. You know what I mean?
Because
But
baseball, you can just like realistically, you can hit hard ground balls between second and third.
mhm.
If you hit them hard enough, you can get on base. But you have a guy who can't go opposite field, or a left-handed guy who can't go opposite field, and it's 5 dudes between first and second. And it's like, yo, he can't turn his hips a little bit and go between second and third.
Yeah.
So like that's the thing that just kind of blew my mind. But like, in NBA is like analytics, make Draymond shoot his 3. Eventually he's gonna knock down a couple.
Right. I mean, hell, he was
Like
almost finals MVP, right?
he had like 30, he had like a 32
32
point
points.
triple double.
Yeah. In that game 7 where LeBron had the greatest defensive play in NBA finals history.
Yo, it was legit. People poo-pooed that when
I
it
know.
happened. I was
It's just because
deployed. I
of
was
who it
like,
was.
come on, dog. Like, y'all don't care about basketball
Like,
if y'all
bro,
think
Tristan
cats.
Thompson or Channing Frye did that same exact thing. Just because they're role players, it would be blown up. Like players rise to the moment.
I remember like that same game, and we'll get back into baseball topics. But I remember after he made that block, right? I'm in this room, I'm deployed, I'm waiting on my jet to land. Um, no one really reacted with like real enthusiasm. And I think about when I was in Iraq in 2008, and I was rooting for the Patriots because I wanted to see an undefeated season. I thought it'd be dope. And when Eli Manning threw the ball off of David Tyree's head, and I was like, we all jumped up. We were watching like a little theater on like these couches, like this makeshift theater they made in the rec center in Iraq when I was in Balad, Iraq.
Right.
Balad Air Base LSA Anaconda. That's what it was called then. I jumped up and reacted because like that was crazy. So when LeBron got the block and these guys in the room who were all like Kobe guys and anti-LeBron guys, they didn't react. And then LeBron like missed like a little baby hook, like in the next couple
Oh,
of
he was like,
possessions,
oh,
and
he
everybody react.
choking.
Oh, I'm like, yo, really? Y'all gonna react to that? Like
Like
people
that's why
miss
I always
baby
tell
hooks.
people Kyrie's 3 doesn't matter if the block doesn't happen.
Yeah, but
Like one has to lead to the other.
And then he hit the free throw, and then Kevin Love played the defense. But it's like, and I get that it's sports and it's money, and as fans, we want hope, we want clarity, we want parity, we want it all. And like I said last week, parity is a byproduct of participation. You got to participate in these situations to create the parity. But in baseball, they're definitely put a lot of these smaller teams behind the 8 ball, because I don't care what you say. Getting the Miami Marlins and the Oakland Athletics in the World Series, as the way that the league is currently constituted, is absolutely impossible. But
Yeah.
we almost had Washington Commanders versus Buffalo Bills in the NFL, because they embrace the salary cap, they embrace, cutting players,
We had
trading
Phoenix and
players,
Milwaukee one year.
moving coaches,
in the
giving
NBA.
coaches real power.
I mean, Pittsburgh
What's
is.
that?
I said we had Phoenix and Milwaukee in the NBA Finals. And we've had San Antonio against New Jersey back in the day.
But if I told you, hey man, I'm gonna bet $1,000 that Cleveland versus Pittsburgh is gonna be next year's World Series,
everybody would take that bet.
They'd bet against me.
Yeah, everybody would take that bet. Everybody would,
and
be
they
like,
could probably cash that bet out. And unfortunately, like, depends on the situation, they could probably cash that bet out in August.
Right, 100%.
Like, yo, let me go and get that $250 a month for the next few months. I give you a reprieve.
100%. But on that note, y'all, he is the one and only world-renowned Mr. Logical, and I am 2-5. We will be back on Friday, and that means Super Bowl picks. Is anybody bold enough to pick against
the Atlanta Falcons?
And then, of course,
I ain't forget about you, baby.
We're going to have trade deadline reaction and much, much more. We love you. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate, do all the free things. Do all the good things. We love you. Peace.
Hungry and humble.